Well, hello, and thanks so much for joining us for another at-home edition of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain, and today we've got a lot of show and tells and a lot of your questions to get to. So before we do that, let's have our expert panelists that you know and love introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their specialty. So Kelly, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Alsop, and I'm a horticulture educator for University of Illinois Extension. I'm based out of Bloomington. My expertise within the team is integrated pest management, and I was a greenhouse grower before I came to this position. My passion is beneficial insects, pollinators, and I've really been getting into tree health and wanting to spread the love around and get people to start really taking care of their trees. That's been my latest passion.
All right, not a bad passion to have. Thank you, ma'am. And John, what is your passion?
Uh, I have lots of them. I'm John Bodensteiner. I'm a Vermain County Master Gardener. I like trees and shrubs. I've got a couple of things I'm going to show today that I found interesting. Some the good and the bad. And I do like a lot of perennials. I specialize in hostas and a little bit of everything, really.
A little bit of everything. Okay, wonderful. So as we are now into the fall and we're starting to see our things go to seed. I know I just lost the last of my plants yesterday. My impatience bit the dust yesterday. So Kelly, we're talking about things going to seed, sort of returning to nature, and you've got a show and tell that's kind of aligned with that. So what do you got?
Yeah, I know all gardeners had to make those tough decisions about what was going to overwinter in their house and what they were going to allow to succumb to. Sorry, there's floss around. But I love milkweed. I think it's really easy to start from seed. So milkweed, this one is ready to go. You see how brown it is.
Mhm.
So, and then it bursted open and you see all those little seeds in there. So, we know that we need to plant milkweed in our gardens. We know that milkweed is really good for monarchs, but not only monarchs, it is good for a plethora of pollinators and beneficial insects. And really, as a horticulture educator, you can't tuck in enough milkweed as far as I'm concerned. So if you have one or two plants, why not have 10? So this is a really great way to get 10. So what happens is, as it looks like this, and every now and then you'll see the floss. You see the floss that's attached to the seed. They actually used to make pillows out of this, but it's a very clever way for the seed to be carried in the wind or be carried somewhere. So what is the hardest part when you're
Be careful there with those consonants.
I know I'm gonna have milk. What the hardest part really is to detach that seed from the floss, right? So sometimes I'll put this in a cup and put a penny in there, and it does an okay job of getting some of that floss off and separating that seed. But what I've lately, what I've discovered is that people are putting their seeds like this into a metal bowl and they're burning the floss from the seed. And you can YouTube it. It's actually really quite clever. And so then you get a jar of seeds like this. This is a lot of seeds. I'm trying to collect seeds because every spring I get tons of people asking me for free milkweed seeds. And so I decided I would collect this year. Well, a normal gardener would go ahead and plant now because these seeds need a cold treatment before they will actually germinate. I am going to keep my seeds in a refrigerator. and then it'll have that cold treatment it needs, and it'll go ahead and germinate in the spring when I plant it. So you just go up to those big, they look like sickle shaped seed heads. Once they're brown now, they're ready. Get them before they pop open and start spreading in the wind, and then you can add more milkweed to your garden.
Awesome. I took your advice last year with the penny, except I used a plastic bag and put a few pennies in there and shook it. And then once they all fell down to the corner, I just snipped the corner off. The seeds came out, bada bing. Like you said, it wasn't 100%, but it did work really well. And the kids got a kick out of it too.
Yeah, I've been looking for 100% something,
Yeah.
clearly you're not going to give your kids a lighter, but well, maybe depending on their age. But once I discovered the lighter trick, I was like, well, we're never going to do this any other way.
Wow. I'll have to check that out. That's
I will
neat.
too.
Definitely. Okay. Thank you so much. All right, John, what did you bring us?
One thing I just like to add, they might
Sure.
look at as far as when they do plant their milkweed, look at it has some special requirements as far as, like Kelly said, you need to vernalize it and keep it in the refrigerator. It needs a cold treatment, but also it needs sunlight to germinate. So you don't want to plant it too deep.
Okay.
Thank you for adding that.
And when should so after the cold treatment in the fridge, first of all, how long should they stay in the fridge? And then let's talk a little bit about that timeline. Is that all winter?
You really only have to have them in the refrigerator for probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah,
but I'm going to keep them in the refrigerator all winter because I am lucky enough to have a refrigerator dedicated to seeds.
Oh, wow.
In my office. So I will keep those in the refrigerator all season long, but 6 to 8 weeks is probably efficient.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, John.
Okay. Keeping on with kind of the pollinator theme, what I brought today was some Autumn Joy, which is one of those, this is a sedum. And it's one thing we're finding is that we not only need spring plants for pollination, like the dandelions. I mean, that's one of the very first that we have, and other things throughout the year. But this one here is nice in that it's later in the summer that we really get the blossoms, because we do need those. That we do have insects that are out late, and Autumn Joy, the sedum, is one of those that really does do a good job. And if you go out, if you've got this in your yard, you go out and there's all kinds of little butterflies, there's bees, there's just all kinds of insects that are swarming these things, because most of the other things have gone past the flowering stage, and there's very, very few good flowering plants that have nectar and pollen in the fall. So this is one of those that I would encourage people. It's easy to grow. It has a beautiful color. There's a number of different varieties. I've got one that up in another corner that's a miniature one, and it doesn't get more than 6 inches tall. This one gets, it can get to be 2 or 3 feet tall. But some of them are very small, and the leaves are smaller. And I love all of the sedums, these Autumn Joy type sedums.
Okay. And John, I wanted to ask you, I know you do a lot with the greenhouses at Schlarman Academy. In the winter, are you still pretty active in there? Is the greenhouse still busy in the winter, or do you take the winter off there?
Oh, no, that's when the kids are really we're doing succulents. We're doing starts on succulents. We break the little leaves off, lay them on wet beds, sand wet beds. I've got air layering that we're going to undo today. Actually, it's selection day, and so we said that we were going to actually we timed it 6 weeks to 8 weeks that we do an air layering. We're doing a Japanese lilac just to see if we can do some air layering. I don't know if it's going to root or not, but we're going to find out today. We've also got we'll be dividing our Boston ferns. We usually take those and divide them into 4 to 6 to 8 pieces, and then by spring we pot those up right away and hang them from from all over in the ceiling of the greenhouse.
Mhm.
We're doing stem cuttings. We're doing we'll later on after the first year, January, February, March, we'll start seeds. Um, we're right now doing a project for seventh graders where we're starting Mother of Millions or Mother of Thousands.
Ooh.
And so each, they'll be transplanting those and getting everyone one of those little plants. They're very interesting. The
I
kids
have
love.
hundreds of those. If you would like more donations, please don't send any home with my seventh grader.
Well,
But if
it's
you
going
would
to
like more donations, I have them.
he is going to bring something home special to mom.
Oh, great.
So it the kids' enthusiasm. We started a compost pile, and it was most of the kids were just very. This isn't working. How does this work? Well, I brought some vacuumed some grass clippings and some leaves, and we took it and filled up, and we had a nice cubic yard of. We made them out of pallets. The compost bins with a 3-bin pallet compost arrangement, and filled it up. Had the kids mixing it up, and one after about a week to 10 days, one of the kids had the drill and was augering down and pulling it up, and steam came up, and they said, "What's wrong with this?" And so we we converted 13 kids into believing about composting at that one moment, because they all stuck their hands down, and it was about 130 to 40 degrees down there.
Wow.
So it was really, the microbes were working. So they all know to put the green matter. We went in for how much carbon, like sawdust is 400 count of carbon, where leaf clippings is maybe the lawn clippings may be 19 or 15, 12. So and that we want an average. So they got tested and they all did very well. So
nice.
We're the greenhouse is just packed with stuff right now. You have to stop by and just, it's always open, so you can always go back there and look at it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's awesome. No days off for horticulture, not even in the off
I
months.
know. I go Saturday and Sunday to make sure everything is wet and watered, because it gets pretty warm in there.
Yeah. So over the winter, everything will keep in there and it'll stay warm and everything will continue to grow.
Yep. We have heat in there and water, and so everything keeps growing. We're right now wondering where we're going to put everything.
Wonderful. Okay. Kelly, we're coming back to you, and it's hard to believe we're going to be talking about poinsettia soon. We're going to go to question 933, DJ. This is from Ruth, and she writes in, this poinsettia was given to me in March 2018. It had red leaves all year until Christmas. It started blooming again in May. I have never put it outside and have it in a south window. So she wants to know what to do with it. Now, what is this, November? Okay, so what are your thoughts, Kelly? What's the timeline here?
I'm not the biggest fan of people trying to overwinter poinsettias and get them to go into color again, just because poinsettias are a really difficult crop in the greenhouse to come out to be as perfect as they have to be for consumers to buy them. So really, what is happening is the bracts start coloring up when the days shorten and the nights get long. So as a greenhouse grower, some of my poinsettias would have to be in those types of conditions from 8 to 12 weeks. So if you think about it, it's October. Many greenhouses are right in the middle of growing these poinsettias, because they have, they might want to be starting poinsettias out in November all the way through December. And the poinsettia also in question for her has never been pinched. And it would need to be pinched at least 4 to 8 weeks before I'm starting to lengthen the nights and shorten the days. So you think about it, it's pretty complex. I get in a poinsettia cutting, I grow it. It's very hard for it to get rooted fast. And then you have lots of issues with insects like fungus gnats. Then 4 to 6 weeks after I plant that poinsettia cutting, I pinch it. And I pinch it to 4, 5, 8 nodes. You know what that means? That means if I pinched it to 5 nodes, I'm going to have 5 bracts on my plant. So at this point, and then I have to go through the whole, of the longer nights. So for somebody to get a consistent poinsettia, the way that they would find from a greenhouse or a nursery or a garden center, they would have to take that poinsettia and put it inside a closet every night with exactly 11.5 hours of night for 8 weeks.
That's a
8
lot
to
of work.
12 weeks, depending on what kind of poinsettia it is. Now, why is it coloring up for her? Maybe she lives in the country. Maybe she lives, maybe, it's getting really dark in her house at a certain time. So that's probably why it has colored up already. It probably, if it looks like that now, it's probably still going to be in color come holiday season. But there's it's already past the time that it needs to be for it to look like it would come out of a garden center. So you see how complicated it is?
That's a lot, especially to hit that 11.5 mark consistently.
Yeah, and a lot of poinsettia growers can run into a lot of issues with keeping that night consistent. So we pull big, huge blackout curtains, and we completely black out those plants. There's been studies where if you had a greenhouse out in the country where you don't have to worry about light pollution, if you do get some light pollution, it'll actually prevent those bracts from coloring up.
Oh, wow.
So this is what I say. As a greenhouse grower, throw it away and buy new and support the industry. The poinsettias are very important to our industry. I think that our industry did very well this year, but we still want to support them by buying these plants. I know it's like I'm saying, hey, buy this plant, now throw it away and buy a new one next year. It's kind of like a flower arrangement with roots.
Yeah.
So, to get that perfect looking poinsettia, keep going back, keep buying the new ones. It's never gonna ever look the same way as what I would grow in a greenhouse.
Okay. Good advice.
For the price that you're going to pay at the retail level, if you would look at that compared to the number to get a plant to look like that, if you can, the number of hours you're going to put into getting that plant to look like that, you're going to be working for a penny or two an hour for all the work that you put into that. It's not a good, unless
return on your investment.
No, if you just want to try it, and it's fun to do, that's fine. But if you're trying to just save money, it's not a good investment to try it yourself.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. John, we're back to you for another show and tell.
Okay. I told you earlier about the good. This is the bad. I don't know if you can see this, but this is very easy to identify right now. This is bush honeysuckle. And as you can see, the red berries, it went through 23 degrees. It's still nice and green. You can see the nice red berries. And this is a very invasive, non-native plant that we have growing. And especially in our parks, in our forests, it's one that you'll want to go out and identify now and get rid of. All these little berries, the birds will eat them. They're not real good for the birds. They don't digest them very well. And they usually go through the bird very quickly, if you know what I mean. And the problem with that is once the acid in their stomach, the birds will distribute them and almost every one of them will come. So now is a wonderful time in that they are one of the last trees to to lose their leaves. In the spring, they're one of the first to leaf out. So they're quite easy to identify. One of the other things I wanted to show was, if you look at the stem, you can see it's hollow. And that's another identifying aspect to this shrub. And it can get to be very big. Some of the trunks can get, if you leave them get very big, they can get to 3-4 inches. And it's not that they're not nice, but they are, like I said, they're one of the last to lose their leaves in the fall, one of the first to get their leaves. And so they shade out some of our natives, and they're becoming just so invasive, so prolific in some of our forests, and even on one of my side hills. I've worked trying to get rid of them. I just found one that I missed in one of the corners of one of the hillsides. So that's coming out today, and before the birds before they get the seeds and distribute, so that I have many more. But they're all over. So if we can get everybody to start to destroy these non-native honeysuckle, the bush honeysuckle, it will really help our native plants. And then that, which is what our pollinators need, is native plants. A lot of these non-native, the caterpillars and all the insects, they don't use these.
Yeah.
So then we don't have the birds eating the insects. We don't have the insects to feed the rest of the culture. So it is very important that we do work on getting rid of this in everywhere.
And isn't it something that the ones that you don't want are the last to leave in the fall and the first to arrive in the spring? They're just relentless.
Yeah, and and they used to sell. They used to sell these in the greenhouses.
Oh gosh!
And before we really realized that they were so invasive. So
okay, all right. Thank you, John.
Hey, Tanisha, I wanted to share a resource for people at home. It's a book that I have. It's called The Management of Invasive Plants and Pests of Illinois.
Ooh.
And it was put together by Morton Arboretum, University of Illinois Extension, SIU. A lot of partners went into putting this together. And what they have is they have a list of all these invasive species and how best to get rid of them. Because sometimes just cutting them down, the tree of heaven in my backyard that I keep cutting down, it's never going to go away. There is a reason why these plants have such invasive qualities. So, what John said was perfect. Fall is a great time to get some of these invasive trees out, like the honeysuckle. I know it's a shrub, and then in the book they give you two different suggestions. For instance, a basil bark. If you were to use, they tell you that fire can help, right? But John's not going to prescribe a fire for his backyard, is he? Well, he might, but most likely he's not. Okay. And if John has a huge grove of these, he's not really going to go through and mechanically remove them out, because that's going to be a ton of work. But he's going to use a chemical to get them. Now, I know a lot of people are like, but I don't use chemicals. Okay. When it comes to invasive species, using chemicals as a tool is a necessary. You will not get rid of those invasive species sometimes without using a chemical. And don't think of it as bad. Think of it as good, because you're getting rid of an invasive species and you're allowing native plants to come back and inhabit that area. So I love that he brought up this invasive species trees. And this book there's a PDF on the website. If you want to learn how to identify some invasive plants, if you have a large piece of land, if you want some management, these are like tried and true management strategies, because sometimes it's like, what do I do? What's the exact thing that I do? Like here, they suggest a basal bark treatment, which means you treat the bottom 15 inches of the plant, and you put in a oil in it. That way it'll attach to the bark, and it'll start killing it from that way. So
Interesting.
I just love this because, as a horticulturist, John, like John, we know it's bad. We know there's some strategies to get rid of it, but this tells us exactly what to do.
Can we see the cover of that book, Kelly, and tell us one more time the title?
It's in Management of Invasive Plants and Pests of Illinois, and I shared the PDF with DJ.
Okay.
One thing, if you get in the spring when the soil is just out of frost and they've started to leaf, they pull out 2 and 3 year old plants. You can just walk by and pull them out so easy. They're shallow rooted yet, and I do use Roundup. I cut them off and I paint the cutoff.
It's another strategy.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for coming on, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.